Good morning, and welcome to the Motivational Devotional, where we are merging motivation and spirituality to create a daily dose of confident positivity. I hope that this morning's podcast will help you to be more spiritually and positively motivated so that you can transform your day.
Do you believe in magic? That's the opening line from an old rock and roll song that probably everyone has heard. It talks about magic coming from a young girl's soul and music. That's the kind of general belief about magic, isn't it? That it originates from something or somewhere, if it exists at all, but it pretty much comes out of nothing. It just manifests, and that's why people don't believe in it, but it's why a lot of people want to believe in it. After all, things don't just pop out of thin air, do they? I want to offer up a different concept about magic. It doesn't involve spells, incense, sacrifices, diagrams painted on the ground, or mystical power. It involves you. It involves your mind. It even involves something unseen, and people might think it's thin air, but just because something is unseen doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it involves a few things that are completely within your control. This entire concept of magic has nothing to do with the supernatural. First, let me share a couple of things from my own life in rather vague terms. A year ago, my life was very different from the way it is now. Apart from the circumstances, where I was in my mind and what I believed in myself, my capabilities, and my future were vastly different from the condition of my mind now. I had come to assume that how things were was how things were going to be. I had come to believe that nothing I did was going to make a difference. How's that for a guy who had been meditating and studying positive motivation for years? See? Any of us can slip into that negative self-talk by paying too much attention to how things are and lose our focus on how things could be. So you might wonder if I woke up one day and decided things weren't going to be like that, and so I chose to turn it around and get my thinking straight. I did, but not right then. What happened was things got worse. Without delving too deeply into all the circumstances, I will just say that my wife was dying. I didn't acknowledge it, nor did she at the time, but looking back, I can see that's why things felt the way they did. There are times in our lives that all the positive thinking and plans and goals and dreams won't scratch the surface of what is happening because there are things beyond our control. All you can change is what you tell yourself about it. That came later. After the first of this year, she left this world, and you might think that that's when I decided to turn things around, but no. Things got worse and darker, and I was living the opposite of what I've talked about in the last 160 motivational devotionals. When life hurts, it just hurts. And no matter what you tell yourself, loss creates a hole that can't be immediately filled. It has to just stay there while the universe works with your soul. A few weeks went by, and I knew I had to change things within myself or I was going to head down a path I might not come back from. So I made some changes. I started listening to music and motivational people to remind myself of things I used to know and practice and believe and teach. I was asked to speak somewhere on a topic of my choice, and so I decided to title my talk, My Spiritual Fitness Plan. It was then that I reached deep within myself and found a tiny glimmer of the light of hope I talk about nearly every day now. I realized that I would not do her memory any honor by doing anything other than launching myself forward into a bold new future that I had never believed I could do. I wrote down my dreams. I wrote down my goals. I made them big, audacious things. I told myself that not only could I do it, but that I was going to do it. And I wrote down that I don't lie to me. Simply making that decision completely changed my attitude. I crawled out of a pit, not all on my own, but on my own empowered by the universe. It was then that I saw the phrase that I use to close every one of these podcasts because it is God's honest truth. It was at that point in this year, about early last spring, that I began to believe in magic, but not the magic you might think. I came up with an acronym, and if you listen to many of these podcasts, you know I love a good acronym. Magic for me now is my attitude generates initiative and change. Magic. MAGIC. My attitude generates initiative and change. And that's exactly what happened. I pushed hard to cultivate a can-do attitude, and that generated initiative. I plowed into finalizing a book that then went into the final edit process, and since then, it went through beta reading, typesetting, formatting, cover design, and now it has been released in its final version on Amazon, and it's titled Scepter of the Gods, The Rod of Truth. I also decided it was time to dust the cobwebs off the motivational and spiritual things I had let myself forget and put them into a polished podcast so that not only would I continue to remember, but so that I could pass them on to other people, because these are principles I know will make a positive difference in a person's life if they are applied and practiced and remembered. So I made a plan, pulled together the equipment, studied, made a production schedule, got COVID, recovered from COVID, and while I still had COVID, started recording the first podcast episodes. Never let anything hold you back. Now, today this is episode 165 because I had the attitude to get it done. Magic. I hope and pray you will make the choice I did to believe in magic, because practicing it has given me a whole new hope for my life. Just tell yourself, my attitude generates initiative and change. When you determine that your attitude generates initiative and change, all of creation will conspire in your favor. Trust that the universe always has your back, just like it has mine, and you cannot fail. Zen master Shunju Suzuki said, "The world is its own magic."
Thank you for taking the time to listen today. Please help keep this podcast going by following the Motivational Devotional Facebook page, following @Threefold-Way Radio on Twitter, and sharing the written format of today's message from motivational-devotional.com on your social media. I am deeply grateful for your support, and thank you for letting Motivational Devotional be part of your journey. Peace out. See you tomorrow. Motivational Devotional is a production of Threefold Way Radio, LLC.